Hello and welcome to episode 16 of the And Whatnot podcast. We have officially hit Sweet 16, Adam. Congratulations.
Yay, where's my car?
Where's my car? Well, we are not on the show, the Super Sweet 16, because we are not spoiled brats who get Mercedes and then wish that they had a BMW or some nonsense.
Yeah. I can't remember. Oh, it was Bryan Cranston. It was on...
Yeah.
It was... What show was that on? It was on...
Jimmy Kimmel. We talked about this on another episode. It's so classic. It's so funny. I love that Bryan Cranston is like the serious actor, and he does like serious theater and like, you know, all this stuff, and then he's like just does ridiculous things too. So if you haven't watched it, go watch it. It's so funny. I'm talking to audience, not you. I know you watched it.
We should probably tell them what it is.
No, just watch it.
No, I mean so they can figure out what they're actually supposed to watch. They do a parody of Super Sweet 16 with Bryan Cranston, but instead of Super Sweet 16, it's Super Sweet 60, because it was his 60th birthday, and it's hilarious. You have to watch it. It's great.
See, I just assume that everyone has listened to every episode of the podcast, and they know that we already talked about this.
Well, we might have somebody dropping in like episode 16 for whatever reason. If you're that person that's dropping in for episode 16, stop listening, listen to the other 15, come back, continue listening to this one.
Almost none of it requires knowledge of the other episodes, so you're probably fine, but the odd time I might be like, remember back in that? Yeah, and then keep going.
Well, both you and I are the kind of people that if we start like watching something or listening to something and we kind of like it, we're like, okay, better go back to the very beginning.
You have to. Like, I don't see how anyone could start a podcast. Like, I just started one not too long ago, and they have like something like 150 episodes now, but I have to start at zero. I can't start at the current one. That's just madness. But it's kind of funny because it goes from like 2014 forward. So they're talking about like movies or whatever that have already come out. They're like, oh, we're going to go see Amazing Spider-Man 2. And what's it going to be like? And I'm like, haha, you're going to hate it.
Well, I think it also kind of depends on what the podcast is about. So if it's just talking about like movies and stuff, yeah, you might want it to be more topical, but if it's talking about like books or something, it doesn't really matter if it's a new book because it's still the same. Like, you won't really have heard much, well, maybe if you're really into like book reviews and stuff, but you know what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, I get you. If it's something like, I do listen to one, they have really short episodes. It's like 15, 20-minute episodes, and they just talk about sort of a random topic. So every once in a while, they will reference something. They're like, oh, we talked about this thing another time, and it kind of relates to this, and that's about the extent of it. You don't have to have listened to it. But most of the ones that I listen to are pretty serial, and they build on each other. So
yeah.
I think we're somewhere in the middle. Like, you don't need, like, because each one is sort of a discrete, you know, about a movie. And we might just say, oh, yeah, we talked about this last time. So Don't worry. You don't have to worry about continuity here.
Yeah. This week on a very special episode.
We've also done that before.
Yeah.
Actually, that's kind of relevant. So did you hear the news? I just heard it today. So there's that young Han Solo movie, which is going to be the next sort of out-of-sequence Star Wars movie. So not in kind of the main numerical canon, more like Rogue One.
Yep.
And so they're doing young Han Solo movie. And Phil Lord and Chris Miller were the directors. And whether they quit or got canned, something, either way, it's halfway through shooting and they left.
Huh. Well, I didn't know they were directing it in the first place. But
Adam doesn't stay up on the news.
Well, I don't really care about like pre-production stuff. Like, tell me who the actor is going to be, tell me basic plot line, and I might go see it. I don't care if Jim What's-It from That One Thing in the 90s is playing bit character 87 and it's being co-edited by Rick McNugget from whatever. I'm bad at coming up with names on the spot. Don't judge me.
Rick McNugget. I love it. Were you just watching Rick and Morty and got McNugget sauce stuck in your head?
No, I was gonna say Rick Sanchez, but then I was like, I
And
probably
then you're
shouldn't
like, no,
say
that's
Rick
too obvious.
Sanchez, so I had to think of something. And I was watching The West Wing earlier, and they said something about McNuggets, and so that was in my head. So that's where Rick McNugget came from.
Oh goodness. I do agree. It's like I don't need all the details and all that stuff. I mean, I think it's going to be another situation possibly worse than the situation of how Edgar Wright left Ant-Man. So he left, as far as I know, before shooting, but he had written a script and then they took his script and made a bunch of changes and stuff. But there's still like the odd little thing in there that you're like, I bet he wrote that because they still gave him writing credit. So it's going to be something like that. I mean, they're halfway through shooting. They already have their fingerprints all over everything. So I don't know who's going to replace them, but it's going to be interesting to see the final product, how much fits their style and how much is whoever they get to come in now.
Yeah, I don't know how good of a fit they would have been for it in the first place, because they're very comedic writers, and Han Solo isn't really a comedic character. Like, he was kind of the comic relief, but in like a snarky, sarcastic way, not a ha-ha-ha funny kind of way, so I don't know how well they would have meshed with it, but who knows? Could have been good, who knows?
I think if any of the sort of Star Wars characters to either get like a spin-off or prequel or what have you, I think they would have been best suited for Han Solo because he was the, he was the comic relief. He was that kind of character. And I mean, look what they've done with other franchises. You would not have thought, like when I heard that they were doing 21 Jump Street, I mean, I wasn't old enough at the time that aired to actually watch it. But I'm like, oh geez, they're digging up some stupid TV show. And so and then I heard it was them, and like we know them from Clone High. And it's like, okay, this is gonna be interesting. And that movie was amazing. Like it was so funny. And it's like they take the essence of the thing, but poke fun at it too. So I think of all the characters you could poke fun at in Star Wars, it would be Han Solo.
Yeah, but at the same time, if it's a Han Solo focused movie, you don't want him being the comedic relief character. You want him being the hero character. And I don't know how well they might have done that. Now, I could be completely wrong. They could have been doing an amazing job. But personally, I don't know how well it would fit.
Yeah. Well, we may never know. As I said, if they have half the footage shot or whatever, there's going to be they can't scrap all of it now. Like, that would be crazy. So there's definitely going to be stuff from them in it. So we will see.
Yeah. It also really comes down to the editing. Like, even just editing alone can really change the tone of a movie. So if they let's say they have even like 75% of everything shot, sure, they can do some reshoots on some scenes and then really change stuff up in the editing.
Yeah, I've only watched a couple. I think I saw on YouTube a few times. They recut a trailer to make it a completely different genre. Like they take like How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, like some romantic comedy or whatever, and they cut it to be like a slasher movie or something. It's really funny. I love when they do that.
Yeah, I saw one with Harry Potter that they like completely changed the tone of like the first movie and whatever. I can't remember what they did with it, but I've seen a couple like that as well.
Yeah, it's really funny. and it really is like, I forget. So there's some quote from someone about something. I'm just completely paraphrasing it, but it's like editing it is where you get the final story. Like you can have a script, you can have your shoot, you can have all the actors, you can do whatever, but it's like editing is where it happens. So
yeah, like even just think how much like the like soundtrack and just even like the sound of the movie can really change things. Like it doesn't have to even be soundtrack. Like you don't have to have some big
just
like
put a Benny Hill music and everything becomes hilarious.
But even just like in like a horror movie, adding like a creak or like footsteps or something can really add to it. And so it can really change the way the scene goes, just adding atmospheric noise. So a lot can be done in post to make a movie.
For sure. So, Adam, I have to apologize because as we all know, it is my duty to do the show notes every week.
Mm-hmm.
You get the fun of editing, and I get the fun of all that pre-production. And I didn't do it. So, you know how life gets, and you just forget about things. So we have no show notes this week. So today is our first improv episode. Yay! Everyone loves improv, right? Like, people love it when their friends drag them to improv things. So that's how it's going to go this week. So if we seem a little less polished, hopefully we don't, because most of the time we have very basic, like, bullets, like, talk about the movie, and so usually we're pretty off the cuff anyway. But just remember the first rule of improv: always say yes.
Yep.
So if I start going on something ridiculous, you just follow right along.
Well, don't forget, I can change the whole thing in post, so.
Very good. So you can make us less stupid, which you haven't done yet, so I don't know if you have that skill.
I don't know, I've made me less stupid. I've cut bits out.
I know, you leave all my bloopers in. I'm, like, stammering over myself, and you're, like, the perfect robot. Like,
I actually do quite a bit of editing to, like, when we have, like, big pauses in our train of thought, like I was just doing right there. Note to self, leave that in. It was purposeful. When there's, like, big pauses like that, I'll cut it down. And if there's times when I'm like, oh yeah, I'll cut things like that out. So, like, I take out a lot of the stammering and things like that.
Yeah, and I think there was one point, I think it was after the first episode or something, I told you to leave some in, or no, I told you to take more out, and you're like, but then we don't sound like people. And I'm like, I guess that's true, I suppose.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things, especially I'm part of the generation, and I think you are a little bit too, where you just say like all the time. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how it started, who knows, I don't know, but I definitely say it a lot, and I notice it a lot on the podcast when I'm re-listening to it, and I'm trying really hard not to do it now. They say one of the things to do is you speak more slowly and you actually think about all your words that are coming out of your mouth, because usually you start dropping the likes and the ums and the whatever if you just go. And if you're not thinking about every word, that's one of the tricks.
Yeah, when I was editing the, like, first episode, like, I was trying to take out, like, every, like, little and like I was trying to, like, make it as perfect as possible. And so after I edited maybe about a half hour of it, I listened back and I was like, man, we sound awful. We don't sound like we're having a conversation. It's like we're trying to read from a script. And we don't want that. We want the conversational style. So yeah, I do leave in some little things like I said, like the pauses, like, oh, now that we've talked about, like,
now
I said,
that you're talking about likes,
30
you're doing
times
it all the time.
I know, it's awful, but 95% of those are going to stay in because it makes us human.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't be one of those editors that just takes out everything that doesn't work. Like, damn it, I said like again, son of a bitch.
Okay, don't get caught up in your head about it. Now you're just, like, freaking out, and the more you notice it, the worse it'll be.
Yeah, so you can't be one of the people that tries to take everything out because it just won't be good. Yeah. Most of the editing that I do on, like, our speech patterns and stuff is more like, oh, that was a 3-second pause, let's make it a 2-second pause. It just sounds more natural that way. Like, we know what we're saying, and we're taking in a pause for a reason, rather than, like, a 5-second pause to think about what we want to say next.
Yeah, and when we start dropping all the likes and stuff, we're just very excited. That's what's happening. You just get so excited, you're just talking. And it was really funny. I was out with 2 friends, and after we parted ways, I was still with the one friend, and she was like, oh my gosh, you know, I love other girl to death, but she's just like all the time. And she's worse than me, and I'm pretty bad. And I just thought it was funny because the friend who had said that has a really bad vocal fry. Have you heard of that for, like, women? is where you
Uh,
like kind of go up at the end of all your sentences and you almost have like a little lispy S and stuff.
oh,
And
no.
apparently it's a newer thing. I don't really know. I saw one sort of YouTube video about it, just kind of explaining what it is. And it's one of those, oh, like once you know it, you can see it a lot more in other people. And so I just thought it was funny. She's criticizing the other girl for saying like, and sometimes this girl's vocal fry drives me nuts. So like everybody has a thing. Everyone's annoying.
Hmm.
But it's one of those once you hear it, you can't unhear it. So maybe spare yourself the Google.
Yeah.
So I also ended up picking the movie for this week, and I picked The Mummy. However, it is not the 2017 Tom Cruise The Mummy, because we always we're never super topical with our movies. We're always maybe a week after they come out because we're just plebes who have to see it in the cinema like normal people, and we don't get advanced screenings and all that stuff.
You say
So
plebe? I thought it was
plebe.
pleb.
I always pronounced it plebe.
I say pleb.
Plebeian?
Yeah. Plebeian.
Yeah. I don't know. Whatever. That's what I say.
Words.
Everyone can go to hell. It's like when my friends make fun of me for saying advertisement instead of advertisement, because that's how our mom says it,
Yeah.
is advertisement. And so that's how I say it, and they all make fun of me.
Yeah.
Also, I say cauliflower instead of cauliflower. Like, I don't do the E, and they make fun of me for that, too. I'm like, that sounds stupid. And they're
Yeah.
like, what are you going to do? Cauliflower? I'm like, we were 16. Why are you saying this? Like, that's not even funny. So, people say things different. Anywho, my point is the Mummy 2017 already came out. There's a slew of terrible reviews, and as much fun as it is sometimes to just watch a shitty movie knowing it's going to be shit and laugh at it, I don't want to pay the money. I don't want to pay, $13 plus popcorn, which is like $20
Yeah.
to go see a movie that I know is going to be terrible. So as an alternative, I suggested we watch The Mummy 1999, the Brendan Fraser version, which you reluctantly agreed to.
Yeah. My chief complaint with watching the 99 version was I don't know how well it would hold up, and the first thing on my little thoughts note is it stood up surprisingly well.
I know, right? All right, so let's just get into it. So, The Mummy 1999 summary version.
So it opens up in ancient Egypt with the high priest Imhotep basically having an affair with the pharaoh's mistress, Aksu-Namun. And Pharaoh's not too happy about that. He walks in on them. They kill him. They end up... the guards come in, kill her, grab him, and they mummify him alive while doing this, like, really bad ritual thing that, like, puts a giant curse on him and all that stuff. So, cut to the 1920s, and we see Brendan Fraser's character, Rick O'Connell, part of the military or something, fighting in the desert, and turns out that the battle's taking place on top of the temple where the cursed mummification had taken place, and he escapes from the battle and all that, and cut to the Museum of Antiquities in Cairo, and we meet Rachel Weisz's character, Evelyn, also called Evie. She's a librarian at the thing, and she's really into Egyptology, obviously, and I'm really bad at these things. What the hell happens next? I can't think of anything.
So then Jonathan has a little box, and
Yes.
they find the map
Yes.
to Hamunaptra, the city of the dead, where there's supposed to be treasure. We'll tag team it.
Okay.
To Hamunaptra, the city of the dead, and there's supposed to be buried treasure, and they plan a trek to go find the city. So they go and get the guy that Jonathan has the box from, which is our hero, Rick O'Connell, and he's in jail, so they have to like barter for his life. And what's his face is the like prison guard. I have to look up his name. Because he's so funny. Oh, I cannot pronounce that.
Omid Djali?
Djali?
Sure.
Sorry, guy. We're
Sorry,
pronouncing your
Omid
name
or Omid.
Omid.
Not that you're ever going to
Anyway,
be listening to it, but if you are, hit us up. We'll get you on for an episode.
sorry. So anyway, so he tags along, and they all go on this voyage to Hamunaptra, and it just so happens that the screenwriters thought it would be a good idea to have Rick O'Connell's best buddy Benny, who kind of abandoned him in the desert last time, happens to be leading an excursion to Hamunaptra at the same time with a bunch of American treasure hunters and one like scholarly guy. And so they all get to Hamunaptra. And through a series of unfortunate events, they happen to read the incantation that brings Imhotep back to life. So he is now the mummy. And he has all these supernatural powers and controls sand, and he has to rebuild his body by sucking the life out of basically the Americans. So he sucks them all dry, and he becomes, a whole person again. He has skin. He's not a mummy anymore. And his plan is to resurrect Anck-su-namun, and he takes Evie as a hostage and a sacrifice. They all go back to Hamunaptra, and he's performing the ceremony to bring his dead girlfriend back to life. And Rick and Jonathan and what's Oded Fair as Ardith. He's also there. He's supposed to protect from Imhotep ever waking up, but since he did such a shitty job, now he has to try to kill him. So he's there, and they're all trying to stop Imhotep, and they do that. So that's good. and then Rick and Evie fall in love. Isn't that nice?
Yes.
The end. The worst translation possible. It just got really fast there at the end. It's like there's fighting, and there's like mummies and scarabs, and there's the whole thing. Like if you haven't seen it, you had like almost 20 years, 30 years. How many is that? You had a lot of years. You need to like get your stuff together.
Yeah.
I have to math now. 18 years? You had 18 years to get your shit together. So, overall thoughts.
I liked it. I liked it the first time I saw it. I liked it the second time, the third time. I've liked it every time I've watched it. It's been quite some time since I did see it, so there were bits that I forgot, and I was like, oh, that's good. But I enjoy it. It's a good movie.
It was one of those, when I suggested it, you're kind of like, oh, I don't know if it's going to be as good as when, we were kids and saw it. But watching it again, I'm like, it's just a good time. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, if you want to get all nitpicky, and like I said, if you want to get all cinema sinsy on it and be like, oh, that doesn't make sense, or oh, that's stupid dialogue, or oh, how does like the scarab do that, or whatever. Like, you can pick it apart, just like you can pick anything apart. But when you dig down to it, it's just a good time. Like, I remember being... How old was I? I would have been... Oh, jeez, now I have to, like, calculate my own age. Jesus.
11.
Okay, thank you. Oh, that should have been easier than it was.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was going to say 10-ish, so I was right. So anyway, I would have been 11-ish. And you would have been like 6-ish, I guess, when it came out.
Yep.
So, I mean, I remember watching it, and I remember not being scared, but like the mummy was kind of scary. And, when he's all like sucking people's fluids out and stuff, and like they're just husks, like, that's pretty scary for a 10-ish year old. And, I still just have campy fun with it. Like, it's not even, I wouldn't even say it's one of those movies that you watch just to be like, man, look how cheesy it is. Because it's not even really that cheesy,
Yeah. The only thing that, like, kind of dates it is the not-so-great CGI at some bits.
But even then, like, watching it, I mean, there's bits you can tell are super green screened. Mm-hmm. But overall, the CGI is really holding up. Mm-hmm. Like... It could easily be like a B-level movie today.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a B-level movie by today's standards. And you can't fault it for
but
that.
Like a good B, like a B+. Like it's a B+ kind of thing. Like, I think I've seen recent movies that are worse than that. And that was supposed to be like top tier at the time. I mean, this is the year The Matrix and stuff came out. Mm-hmm. And I don't know the last time you watched The Matrix, but some of that looks a little rough now too.
Yeah.
And I think it falls in the same category. At the time, it was mind-blowing, and even today, it's decent. Like, it's certainly not the worst. It's not the worst of even something that came out this year.
Yeah, it's definitely held up a lot better than I thought it would. Like, even, like, kind of like the practical effects, like, they have, like, costumed mummies during some of the fight scenes, and they look a little but still, it's not bad. It's definitely, like, B plus movie if you want to further subdivide them.
That's going to be my claim to fame now. B plus movie. I'm sure I'm the first one to think of that. But and I think what makes it hold up is they use CGI well. Like, it's not like a sort of Tron where everything is CG, so it has to be perfect because it's the whole world. They did a lot of like composite shots of, real people standing in front of green screen and on a set, like layering it. Because right now, so many things are, if you look at like the final battle of the Avengers or something, it's pretty much all green screened and very little in any sort of actual environment. Where here they like had stuff on set and they just digitally overlaid it instead of green screen, which I think makes it a little better.
Yeah. That's one of the chief complaints with like a lot of new movies is that like 95% of everything's green screen, whereas back in the day only that 5% was green screen. Like, there was a story going around that when filming like some of the Hobbit movies, Ian McKellen kind of like broke down one time because it was during like the like dwarf party in like the house when they all kind of just come over, and like that entire scene was done in green screen, and so he was acting to little pictures of people taped on sticks and things like that, and it just wasn't what he got in acting for, and so he wasn't having a good time with it and stuff like that.
I heard that as well. And I think here, because I used a lot of practical effects, like I watched this making of featurette thing like before I watched the movie again this week, and that sand, like when he first gets to when he's fighting that battle at Hamunaptra, and they've got him cornered, and then they were going to shoot him, and then whatever, and then the sand makes a mummy face. So the actual sand blowing at him is real, and then they did the mummy face in CG. So it's like, it's the thing of, it looks real because it was real, and people don't do practical anymore. Oh, and I think my favorite example of it's the limitation at the time. So if this movie were made today, which it kind of was in 2017, we just didn't watch it, and they had the access to, you can make a completely CGI everything, just have Brendan Fraser on a green screen for 2 hours. That doesn't mean you should. Take George Lucas. So the first Star Wars, you didn't have any of that. Like, the most advanced computer graphics you had at the time was making that projection of the Death Star. And he had to do everything practically. And everyone loved it, and that's why it holds up. And if you look at the re-releases when he digitally adds a bunch of shit, everybody hates it. And it's like, if he had had the tools to do what he wanted to do the first time, it would have been shit.
Yeah. Funny thing, one of like the asteroids in the asteroid field in Star Wars is like a potato. One of them is like a boot or something.
Yeah, that's so funny.
Yeah, but yeah, I agree. Like, the practical effects is what makes it good. Like, they even do like a really good job of the composite shots. Like, at the end of the movie when like the city's like kind of like imploding upon itself, some of like the sand bursts are like actual explosions under sand, and just because like I've seen it from other movies and stuff, like I can tell that one's real, but then there were also some CGs in there, and so it's all layered over top of each other for the final look, and it looks better than it would if it was just pure CG.
Exactly. It's like having 50% real and 50% computer. The realness makes the computer look realer. And then the computer makes the realness look bigger,
Yeah.
So, I like, if anyone watches it again, I think you will be pleasantly surprised, much as I was. And even the shots, like full green screen, like the only one I can really think of is right when we meet Imhotep. He's like overlooking the city, and then he turns around when Anoxi the Moon comes in. Like, that's all green screen. It's him in front of it.
Yeah.
But it still looks pretty decent. Like,
Hmm.
you know it's fake, but you don't get that kind of edge that you get sometimes with green screen where you can like really see the difference and stuff. But I think they did a great job, and it does hold up. And even the practical, like the mummy, like when they first open the sarcophagus and the mummy pops out and they're like, he's still juicy. And like that's great. Like that's obviously a real thing that someone had to like spray down or something to get the wet look or whatever.
Yeah.
And and so they still did that. And I think a lot of times that's what's missing these days is that practical effects because you're like, we'll just put it in post.
Yeah, because pretty much now it's easier and cheaper to just do everything digitally. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
don't have to pay somebody hundreds of hours to create all these sets and all that. You just set up some green screens and get it done digitally. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it takes less work, I think, digitally, because they are going to have to add things in digitally anyway. If they're doing set work, you're not going to have the entire action sequence be practical. You're going to have some CG,
Yeah.
so why not have all CG? So,
And and you can really see where the CG's gone. I mean, it has its own issues as well. And I think we're at a time where it is getting a lot more realistic. But if you look at, say, like the progression of Pixar movies, like Toy Story 1 is pretty rough from today's standards. It's still fantastic. And I think it's that same thing of it was so cutting edge at the time that it's still kind of decent now. But Pixar had to create so many like programs and had to figure out solutions to their own problems that they're advancing their own field. Like the hair on Sully in Monsters Inc. It like renders each hair individually, so when he moves, it actually looks like a thing that's moving. It doesn't just look like a block. It looks like how a real creature with fur would look.
yeah.
And so, the water in Finding Nemo had to make this whole new program to render the water in a super realistic way. And so it's like challenging yourself pushes that further.
Yeah. I think a lot of CG now has kind of like reached its peak of where it's going. Like, it can only get better, like, fidelity wise. Like, you can only make things look better. Like, you can't really innovate on anything. Like, I can't remember like what the first movie that used like a full CG background was, but that would have been impressive at the time. And now with everything being CG, it's just, can we make it look ever so slightly more realistic?
Yeah. Or I think, kind of talking about Pixar, the movie that really just got me was The Good Dinosaur. So I never saw it in theaters because, again, it was kind of like, I'm hearing some mixed things about it. And I don't know if Pixar to me has ever had a full flop, but there's been ones that are like, okay, this is like, I'm going to give you a C. Like, this is you not trying, Pixar. So The Good Dinosaur, the environments are gorgeous, just beautiful. Water, it almost looks like a video and not something computer generated. It's so beautiful. And then the dinosaurs are horribly cartoonish. It looks so stupid. It's like this hyper realistic environment and then these like bubbly cartoon dinosaurs. I'm like, oh my, like, what are you doing? I mean, I obviously you're not going to put in like Jurassic World literal dinosaurs in it. It's a kids movie, but like it just looked so ridiculous.
Yeah. And again, that might just be like a stylistic thing. Like, they were.
Ugh, horrible.
I don't know. I didn't see that one, so I can't really say much about it. But it, I don't think they're ever going to get CG to a point where you don't realize that it's CG. It's just going to be ever so slightly better. And sometimes, like, you have to make it obvious that it's CG because there's no other way to do it. Like, look at, like, the New York chase scene in Doctor Strange. There's no way you could even think about doing anything like that practically. Just doesn't make sense. You can't have that movie practically. You have to do CG. And we're kind of ragging on CG a bit, but a lot of great movies have come about because of it.
Oh, for sure, yeah. It's a double-edged sword. It's like it's the Goldilocks. You have to use it enough, but not too much. and
Hmm.
and the more you rely on it, it's almost like the worse it becomes. And now we've gotten into the phase of they're like de-aging people, like people's faces, and Marvel's been good for that the last couple times. Like, they did RDJ and in Civil War, and Michael Douglas and Ant-Man, and they just did Kurt Russell in Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, that works because they have those images of those actors from 20 years ago, because they've been acting for so long. They have sort of the banked images, because any time they've done that and they don't have somewhere else to draw from, it just looks terrible.
Hmm. Like
When you're trying to like digitally smooth their face or something.
Yeah, like even look at Rogue One. Like they completely digitally redid the guy who plays Grand Moff Tarkin and
Very, very
Princess
true.
Leia. I think with at least Grand Moff Tarkin, if you didn't know that it was just a composite face on top of this guy, I don't think a lot of people would actually notice it. It was more noticeable with Leia just because she's such a recognizable character. But
Yeah.
with Tarkin,
I will fully admit, I don't
wouldn't
really know
have
Star
known.
Wars. I didn't know. I thought he was like a person. I was like, because I'm like, I didn't know he was dead. I didn't think he was dead, but I obviously thought he was old. So I'm like, oh, he looks really good, like for his age. And I'm like, oh wait, he's dead. Like, so he looks fantastic.
Like I knew that it was done digitally. I just didn't know how much of it was done digitally. Because like the guy looks like he could be related to the guy who actually played Grand Moff Tarkin in the original series. Like
Yeah.
it wouldn't be like his brothers. It might be like his nephew or something. Like you can like there's enough that you'd be like, oh, I could see them actually being related, and they kind of just enhanced that. Rather than with Leia, they just got someone and put her face on there.
Yeah, the Leia one was really obvious, and I know one friend who was super into, I think I said this in our Star Wars episode, but I have a friend who was super into it, and she said it ruined the movie for her, and it was last like 2 seconds, and it definitely did not need to be in there. I think they just put it in to show it off, the technology, and that's another thing of like, if we didn't have that ability, you couldn't have put that terrible scene in. So it's her words, it didn't ruin my life. I'm like, oh, that's nice. I mean, you're not going to get anywhere if you don't try.
Hmm.
But yeah, like you didn't have to put that in at all. You could have cut that.
Yeah.
But and so trying to steer back to the Mummy, we're like way off here. We're like in the weeds right now.
This is what happens when we don't have show notes.
I think this probably would have happened anyway.
Yeah, it would have.
Yeah, but I thought that my nostalgia would carry me over, and it did a little bit, but I think in general it's still a good movie. And just watching it, I'm like, they don't make movies like this anymore. I couldn't really put my finger on it. I don't know if it's, I mean, the plot's fairly linear. I don't know if it's that, because sometimes I'm watching like Marvel and, they're doing something, and I'm like, what's the overall point of this? Like, what's the goal? And it just seems like the story doesn't come organically. And watching this movie, it's kind of like, they're not out to save the world. They're not even really out to get like a doodad. Half the movies are about finding MacGuffins these days. And, I keep bringing up Marvel because it seems like that's all we talk about. But it's like every movie's like, when's the Infinity Stone going to show up? How are we going to get all these Infinity Stones together? Because we know that that's what's coming. It seems like it's a lot of MacGuffining.
Yeah.
Whereas this one is like they're just going to explore. Like they just want to, she's an academic. She just wants to go and see what's out there and all that stuff. It just seems more straightforward. It's like no one has a crazy motivation. You're not trying to think of when's the twist coming. It's just like it just happens,
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to say it feels natural because there were kind of some
Oh yeah, some yeah, for
forced
sure.
bits, but
That plane guy.
yeah,
Like we need to get back there really fast. Let's just make a guy with a plane.
yeah, but it flows well. There's no point when you're like, wait, why are they doing this? It just flows.
Yeah.
I think that's the best way to describe it because I can't really think half the time.
And like I said, it's not free of camp, it's not free of cheese. There are some lines, there are some things where you're like, oh God, and you hope that they wouldn't put that in kind of a movie of today. But
Hmm.
you know, and it's like the cast is like, sorry, not the cast, the characters are a little archetypal. Like there's the hero, there's the damsel in distress, and there's the goofy sidekick, and the like, all that's all, they all fit into those sort of templates. But I don't know if it's again the nostalgia, but is you just forgive it. Like nowadays, if they made a movie like that again, I almost wish now we had watched The Mummy, the new one, to compare, because it's like what kind of characters do they have? Because I only know that there's Tom Cruise, a girl, and Jake Johnson. That's who I know is in that movie. So I'm like, so obviously Tom Cruise is our hero, she's our like damsel in distress, and our goofy sidekick. So it's the same archetype, so I would have liked to see how they did it as like a modern version.
Yeah.
And how do you feel about casting? Because like again, I don't know if it's because I maybe because you didn't get all that news. Like we were younger, and I feel like people didn't care about how movies were made. They just cared about the movie. But I think the casting was like perfect. Like I don't know who else. If I were remaking it today, I don't know who I would cast that would, in my mind, be better than them.
Yeah. I think the only person that would actually be different, like if they were to cast with like popular actors today, would be like the head Egyptologist or whatever that's Evie's boss would definitely be played by Ben Kingsley.
Very true. I guess, that would be pretty good.
And other than that, I don't think you'd really replace anybody. Like, obviously, you'd have probably like more popular actors nowadays, because Brendan
Yeah.
Fraser hasn't been in anything, so they'd replace him with somebody else, or they'd replace like the American team with whoever, because they don't matter. But there's nobody there that stands out that you'd be like, no, we're getting rid of them.
Yeah. It just seems like everyone who is in it is like feels like they belong there. And going back to our prison warden who tags along with them, Omid Djali, I'm so sorry. Have you ever seen his stand up? It's been a long time, but it was like on one of those Just for Laughs reruns and whatever. So I've seen some of his stand up, and he is the exact same. Like he is just himself there. He is not even acting. I think he's so funny.
Yeah, he's great. I haven't seen him in like a long time, and like,
Oh yeah, nothing recently. Like these, I'm trying to think of the last thing I saw Rachel Weisz in, but pretty much everybody's like of that time. Like I don't
yeah.
know how many of them are still working right now, or doing things I would recognize. I'm sure some of them are still active, but
Well, Rachel Weisz was even replaced in like the third movie in like the trilogy, the Tomb of
yeah.
the Dragon Emperor. She was replaced in
Oh, that was
that.
terrible. Like as much of all these movies are supposed to be just campy and fun, that one was awful.
Yes.
Like I don't remember anything about it except it takes place in like China, and it was awful.
Yeah. I'm still pissed that they ended the second one on the cliffhanger.
And then didn't do anything with it in the third
Oh,
one.
right?
Like it's a
Yeah.
cliffhanger. You're supposed to answer the questions. But I remember being less favorable with the second one. Like the second one, they have a kid, and then they have to like get the bracelet thing to the pyramid, and the CGI jungle was really rough in a couple scenes, and they had the like pygmy mummies things that like killed them, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that was and I remember the CG on the rock being really terrible.
Oh, it was
Like
bad.
it was brutal. I mean, it's like you said, the whole Doctor Strange, you can't possibly do that real. You can't make the Rock into a scorpion person. It has to be CG, but oh my lord, it was bad.
Yeah.
That one I think will hold up less. I feel like there's less CG overall, but the CG they had was bad.
Oh no, there's definitely way more CG. Like
Well, like the jungle, yes.
the
I'm trying
jungle,
to
the
think.
little pygmy guys, the rock, all like the jackal mummies and like everything in the final battle.
Yeah.
There's
But
way more.
but then think of how much they had to do, like that whole opening thing. Like they had to build pyramid. They had the pyramids and the city and the all that stuff, and they had to do this the city here too. I don't know, but
Well, don't forget,
it's
the
worse.
city is essentially just still. You don't have to animate anything
True.
with it other than the camera movement. So it's just a big block of stone. It doesn't take that much.
Very
But
true.
whereas this, there's a final battle between, like, the whoever guys and, like, giant, like,
Magi.
Anubis guys. Like, giant sword fight between them. Like, there's a lot going on there. And if it
Yeah,
doesn't look good, 90% of your movie's gonna look like shit.
yeah. I found like the the Anubis guys weren't so bad. They were pretty decent. It was just really The Rock brought it down. Like the jungle looked fake times, and then The Rock was just, oh my god, why? But
Yeah.
what can you do? 2002, am I right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this one goes well, and I call it like the rainy day Sunday movie or something. You're like, what's there's nothing to watch. What's on? It's just a good standby. It's like you're gonna have a decent time regardless.
Hmm.
You don't have to take a gamble on will I like it, will I won't. It's just solid.
Yeah. It's not something that you'd want to watch all the time. It's like, oh, it's
No.
been like 5 years and it happens to be on like Netflix or something. Let's watch it type deal.
Yeah. Oh, and coming back to casting, so I always laugh every time I think about this movie because all I think about is Oded Fair as Ardith, and I just laugh because like Mom had such a huge crush on him. She loved him so much. She thought he was the hottest thing ever.
Yeah.
It was hilarious. And so now I just like he's all I picture when I picture this movie, and I laugh. And I'm like, Mom, you have pretty good taste. I kind of agree with you. He's a good dude. Because like I don't know, Brendan Fraser always has kind of a goofy face.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's the thing is nowadays if someone were casting it, he'd be a Chris Hemsworth or something like someone who's attractive but like serious, Whereas Brendan Fraser's just goof.
Yeah.
So they definitely wouldn't do that again. But I think everyone works, and Oded Fair, our mom is single. Just in case you listen to
Pretty
the
sure
podcast.
he's married. But
Oh, probably, but Oh my gosh, I just clicked on his Wikipedia picture and he has like short gray hair. I'm like, oh my god, he looks so different now.
yeah, I saw him in something not too long ago. Like I'm scrolling through his thing and trying to figure out what I saw him in.
Yeah, he looks so different. Oh my gosh.
He was in NCIS. He plays a Mossad director, and he was in quite a few episodes of that.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. But no, so I think that's pretty good. If you were if they said, okay, scrap that Tom Cruise one, we're gonna remake the Mummy again, what would Adam do? How would you do the Mummy again? But update it for now.
I don't know. I think I'd keep the plot relatively the same. I can't really think about what I would change other than like updating the actors to be more popular people that are now like around. Because I don't think there's anything wrong with the plot itself that needs to be changed.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's kind of like we said, like they're just going to find out what they can find. The monster comes, they have to run away from the monster. Monster kidnaps the girl, they have to go back and save her, and then they save her at the end. Like it all goes exactly where you think it's gonna go, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd probably have to change something. As I said, we never watched the new one. I don't know where it goes. All I know is it's set in like modern. It is set in like 2017 time. So I don't know if that was a mistake of the current one, because at least it was at the time where people were, finding tombs and, Carter finding King Tut and like all that stuff. Like that's when that was happening. So it makes sense to set it during that time. But if you're setting it now, I guess there's always, we found one that we hadn't found before. But we know so much more about ancient Egypt and things like that.
Yeah, no, I would definitely not set it modern day. Like
Yeah.
maybe like modernize it a bit, like maybe like the 40s and something with the Nazis, if you want to do something like
So
that.
you're just gonna make Indiana Jones, is what you're telling me?
Don't reveal my plan. No, but like I wouldn't make it modern day. Like it works fine in the 20s. Like there's nothing there that you'd have to change. It just works how it is.
But then you make that movie and you're just like, well, you just made it again. Like that seems to be the issue with the reboots is you can't make the exact same thing, but how do you make it different but still make sense? It's a fine line, and I'm trying to think of a reboot that did things the same and it worked, and like different and it worked. And people say the new Star Trek series isn't bad, but I never really watched any of the originals or the TV show or the older movies, so I couldn't really say.
Yeah, but the thing with Star Trek is it's set in space. You don't really have to... it can be set at any time period. It doesn't matter. It's space. Sometime after we get spacefaring technology, you can have it set. It doesn't matter if it's like the year 4086 or 5086. It doesn't really matter.
True.
Whereas this, like, you're going from what's essentially a period piece, although you wouldn't really describe it as a period piece. It doesn't really work like that, but...
Hey, it's set in a different period.
Yeah.
And it's a piece of art.
But updating that to modern times just doesn't make sense either, because how would this have not been discovered yet? Hey, we've got Google Earth. We can see everything. Hey, look, there's a city no one's been to yet. Let's go there. And things like that. Like, it just doesn't work because there's no more mummy hunting. There's not things like that. There'd be no reason for them to be out looking for something. So you'd have to contrive some reason.
I mean, you can always find a doodad. Like, as much as I say it wasn't about finding a MacGuffin, it's kind of like they got the key, which is the MacGuffin. And they don't even show Rick. Do they show Rick finding it? I feel like they don't. It's just Jonathan shows up and he's like, this is the guy I got it from. Like, they don't even see him find the box.
Yeah.
Which, that's what I would change. Rick would find the box somehow, and then we'll all tie it all together. That's the only problem with this movie.
Yeah. You could theoretically set it current day, but you'd have to find some contrived reason for them to be out there. Like, oh, maybe like there was a plane crashed and they're part of like the search party or something. Who knows?
Mm-hmm. I'm sure you could. I'm not a professional screenwriter. I'll leave it to the professionals who sometimes screw it up too. So at least I can't do it as bad as some.
Yeah. Well, it has yet to be seen. So.
Fair enough. Well, I think that's all I have to say about The Mummy 1999. Maybe next time we'll have actually watched The Mummy 2017 and we can compare and contrast as English class used to say.
Yeah.
But probably not. Probably never.
No. If something's as critically panned as The Mummy currently is, like it's got, 15% on Rotten Tomatoes, 34 on Metacritic, I don't think we're going to be watching it, ever, because what's the point, other than just seeing how bad it is? Exactly.
Maybe when I'm really bored and I've completely obtained a legal copy in my home for some reason, then I might consider it.
Or you mistakenly click on it in Netflix or something.
And you're like, too lazy to hit the mouse again. But all right, so that is episode 16. If you have any feedback, if you would like to share your sort of nostalgia movie that we should watch, maybe we share the same late 90s passion for something, then feel free to do so. Ooh, before we go, when I was typing in Wikipedia to kind of look stuff up quickly, I just typed Mummy instead of The Mummy 1999 and stuff. And one of the disambiguation entries was Mummies Alive, the television show. Do you remember that?
No.
Oh my god, it was the best. I remember it being the best. There were these mummies and they fight crime or something. I don't even know. But it was amazing and I'm going to try to download it now. Because it was awesome. And I remember they had a kick-ass theme song. and just Google it, and it's gonna be awesome. I think they had cars that were like shaped like sarcophaguses, sarcophagi.
Oh,
Anywho,
I remember that. I've looked it up, and like I remember like some of it. Like I can't say anything about plot wise, but like
I have no idea. And they were different colors. The girl, there's like a pink one and like a blue one and stuff. Yeah, so good. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna download it. It's gonna be excellent. I hope I find a good copy. It's so silly. So I just think kids' TV shows these days are poop. Like they're all shit. And I don't know if it's just because I'm like crotchety old, like, get off my lawn. It was better back in my day, uphill both ways in the snow. But like, I want to download all the kid shows I used to love, and then my kid will watch that, and they will grow up to be awesome and not shitty like today's kids are. Yeah. That's what's going to happen.
I also think like a lot of kid shows that we remember are probably just like absolute garbage, but we just
the shows
didn't
you
realize.
Watched were garbage. The shows I watched were awesome.
Well, like I think we like misremember a lot of things. Like I can't remember why, but I looked up Lloyd in Space a little while ago. Turns out there was like
good.
There was only 11 episodes. I watched that show for like 5 years, and there was only 11 episodes. Like what the hell?
Ooh, do you know what one I downloaded that's awesome? I've had it for a few years, The Weekenders.
Yeah, I got that from you. I haven't watched. I've watched like the first 2 episodes.
So good. I have a few already downloaded. I have all of the Magic School Bus and a few other things, but no, it's totally, we had the best TV shows and everyone else is dumb.
Yeah.
Anywho, back to the closing. You gotta leave that in. Anyway, so if you have any movies or TV shows from your childhood that we should watch again when we don't feel like shelling out money for poop at the theater, then we will do that. You can send your suggestions to andwhatnotpodcasting@gmail.com or find us on Twitter at andwhatnotpodcast.
No,
something.
Wrong.
What is it?
@_and_whatnot.
Not important. I never tweet myself, so why would I care? It's not like people need to find us on the intertubes to listen or anything. No. That would be silly. All right. Until next week, when we have to figure out something else to watch.
Yeah.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.